Hi everyone. I just wanted to take a few minutes to talk about what we're going to do about turning in those lab pages from your lab manuals. So as you saw in the weekly folder this week and in my announcements this week, our last week was the final week that we're going to be using the lab manuals. So the Plant Diversity Lab is the last lab that we'll be doing from our lab manual. So the remaining labs this week, which was the ecosystem scavenger hunt, and then next week I'll have a new activity for you, are going to be standalone turn-in lab assignments. You're not going to use your textbook, or excuse me, your lab manual for those. So what we need to talk about then is we need to talk about how you're going to get those lab pages to me. Originally, weeks ago, I thought maybe if things had changed and if the stay-at-home order had been lifted, I had anticipated being able to meet you out at perhaps Crabtree from a safe distance, right? 6 feet apart from each other while wearing our protective face coverings. We would make sure it would all be very safe, of course, but that's not going to happen. The stay-at-home order was extended, which is a good thing, keeping us all inside and keeping us all safe. But it doesn't allow us to do an in-person transfer of those lab manual pages. So what I've done is I've actually created some guidelines on ways that you can get those pages to me. So here in Course Materials folder, I put this under Lab Materials. And in Lab Materials, you'll see that there's a Lab Submission Guidelines folder now. I'd like to try to get these lab pages no later than Wednesday, May 15th. The reason I'm sort of choosing that date is because the following week I have to get your grades turned in, and that's also the week where we're going to be having that final lecture exam, and so I want to give myself plenty of time to get all of the grading in so I can get your grades in as quickly as possible. So I've given you a few different ideas and a few different ways to turn in your lab pages to me. Just as a reminder, there are 4 labs that we did from the lab manual over the past month or so. It's been longer than a month. It's been like 5 or 6 weeks now, if you can believe that. I can't believe that. Anyway, we had the Plant Diversity Lab, which is Lab 2 in your lab manual. Environmental Stress and Ecological Diversity is the full name of that lab, but Stress and Diversity Lab, which is Lab 5. Soils, Lab 7, and Surface Water Pollution, Lab 12. Remember that I only need the pages you actually wrote something on. So if there was a table that I had you fill out, or if there were questions at the end, the lab questions that I had you answer, that's all I need. So I don't need you to take pictures of blank pages for me. So please only get to me those pages where you actually did something, okay? There's 3 different options I'm giving you as far as turning these in, and hopefully one of these will work for you. So the first one is you can just send them to me via email. You can either just take an individual photo of each of those lab pages, attach them to an email. You can use the low resolution on your setting on your phone. So usually phones will ask you, what resolution would you like to send? High, medium, low. Send me the lowest resolution. That's fine. I don't need something that's super high res and it's going to take up a lot of space as far as storage goes. Or if you have ever used your phone as a scanner, so for iPhones, for example, if you use the Notes app, your Notes app has a way for you to actually scan it into a PDF document and send the document to me. I've given you instructions, a little link there on how to do that. An Android device, I don't have an Android device, so here are some tips on how to use an Android phone as a scanner. I'm sure there's ways to do it, but again, I don't have an Android phone, but I've tried to give you some of those tips. So send me the image JPEGs, send me a scanned PDF file. Either way, you can just send them straight through email. That's option number 1. Option number 2 is you can load those pictures up on Padlet. So if you don't want to send them in an email to me, I have created a Padlet, which is a lab submissions Padlet. So you would use this Padlet kind of the same way that you are using the Padlet this week with the nature photos, for example. So you would just double click here and you would put, soil lab and then your name. Okay, J. Alexander, whatever, right? And then you would upload all of the pictures, or you can just take a snap-a-shot right here from the Padlet itself, either way. And then you would do that 4 times, right? So you'd have one that says Soil Lab, one that says plant lab, one that says water lab, whatever, right? So you could do that too. You could just put all of your lab pages up here on the Padlet for me. So that's an easy way to do it as well. And then last but not least, the last way that I'm giving you is to actually do a video of yourself flipping through your lab pages to show them to me. So I put it on Flipgrid, and not a lot of people have been using the Flipgrid, and that's perfectly all right. It was just an option for people to use, just a different medium to kind of connect with each other, but you don't have to use it by any means. So the password is biology, capital B, and then 2020. And so then again, you would do a video of yourself showing me your work. So you can watch my little video of me showing you the blank lab pages, but you would just click this plus button here and you would record a video of yourself flipping through your lab pages for me, right? So you don't even have to say anything. You can just go page by page by page and flip through them, right? So you can do that as well. So all of these are options. All of them are perfectly acceptable. However you want to get your pages to me is fine by me. So again, I'm giving you all until, let's call it the 15th of May in order to do that. If you didn't complete all the labs, or there's parts of the labs that you didn't complete, maybe you did some of the questions, or maybe you did some of the calculations, but you didn't fill in all the tables, send me what you have. Right? I'll give credit where I can give credit. So please don't be afraid to not send me something just because you didn't complete it. So you can send me what you have, and I'll figure out what points I can give you. These labs, the ones from your lab manual, are still only worth 5 points, just like they were when we were in class together, right? They're 5 points. The lab this week that we're turning in separately and the lab next week that we're turning in separately are actually worth more points. They're worth 20 points. So if you find yourself sort of pulled or stretched a little thin and you're trying to figure out where best to manage your time right now, I would definitely make sure you do this week's lab and next week's lab, because those 2 labs are worth the same amount of points as all 4 of these other labs, right? So again, I've heard from a few students that said, they're having some trouble completing the labs. Put the effort into the labs that are worth more points, and then if you have time and you can, go back and try to do whatever of those labs that you can. The plant diversity lab and the environmental stress and diversity lab are probably the 2 quickest and easiest to finish, I would say, whereas the soils and the surface water pollution require a little bit more effort. So again, totally get it. If you can't turn them all into me, don't worry about it. They're only worth 5 points each. It shouldn't make or break your grade by any means. So again, I want to make sure that you understand that this is something that if you have the time and you've completed them, I'd like you to turn them into me so that I can give you credit for those. So as always, if you have any questions or any concerns about the labs or where to access labs, please let me know. I guess I should have added to this, the surface water pollution lab was the only lab that was found in the lab materials folder. So let's just do that real quick. So here's the surface water lab. This is where you access this lab. All of the other labs are in the weekly folders. So we're going to go all the way back to Unit 3 in this case. So we have soils, which was in the March 30th folder. And then the stress and diversity was in the April 6th folder. And then finally, last but not least, you have to go to the Unit 4 material and the April 20th folder in order to do the plant diversity lab, right? Okay, so just keep in mind the surface water lab, if you didn't complete that, that's the only lab that is still found in the lab materials folder. So good luck turning all those pages into me. Please let me know if you have questions.